You see flags everywhere, right? On top of buildings, at the Olympics, during big national moments. They feel so powerful, like they represent this solid, unshakable idea of a country. But when you get into international politics, what a flag actually means, well, it gets a lot more complicated. So let's get into it. And that brings us to the big question, the one that kind of challenges what a lot of us just assume. Do flags actually create countries? Like, if a group plants a new flag in the ground, does that one act suddenly put them on the world map? The answer, you'll see, is not as simple as you might think.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll talk about the difference between a symbol and actual legal status. Then we'll get into what a flag can do, and just as important, what it can't do. We'll also look at those tricky gray zones, disputed territories. And finally, we'll see that it's policy, not symbols, that really calls the shots. Okay, first things first. To really get a grip on this, you have to understand one critical distinction: the difference between what a flag symbolizes and what legal recognition actually is. These are two totally different things, and getting that is key to everything else. A flag, at its heart, is a symbol, a really, really powerful one for sure. It's a piece of cloth that can stand for a whole group's identity, their dream of having a country of their own, or even a direct claim to independence. It's basically a giant message to the world that says, hey, we're here, this is who we are. Recognition, on the other hand, that's a whole different ballgame. It isn't a symbol, it's an official legal action. It's when one government makes a deliberate, formal decision to say, okay, we acknowledge you as another sovereign country. Think of it like a formal handshake between nations. So let's put it side by side. A flag represents an identity. Recognition creates a legal relationship. One is a statement of who you are, the other is like a signed contract with another country. And that's exactly why a group can have a flag, a really meaningful one, without actually having a country that other nations recognize. Now, just because a flag can't magically create a country doesn't mean it's not important. Oh, far from it. Symbols have their own kind of power, a very real power. So let's talk about what a flag can actually do. So what can they do? Well, for starters, a flag is an amazing tool for unifying people, for giving them a single banner to rally around. It's also a clear visual way to tell the rest of the world, we want to be independent. And by literally flying it, you mark a physical presence and signal your political goals. It's a massive statement, even without any formal paperwork. But, and this is a big but, for all of that symbolic strength, a flag hits a wall. There are very real limits to what it can achieve on its own. And understanding these limits is absolutely crucial if you want to understand modern geopolitics. You can wave a flag all day long, but it can't force other countries to recognize you. It can't legally change the borders on a map. It definitely can't get you a seat at the United Nations. And it can't make another country change its mind about its own foreign policy. So without that official recognition, a flag is a declaration, but it's not a deed. And this is where things get really interesting. I'm talking about the gray zones, the disputed territories and partially recognized states where the line between a symbol and legal reality is constantly being pushed and pulled. In these contested places, a flag is absolutely vital. Internally, it helps create a unique identity. It shows that there's a government in charge, and it builds legitimacy among the local population. But on the world stage, its display is often super restricted and depends entirely on the context. It's why you might see a certain flag flying at one international event, but it's completely absent from another. So if the flag itself doesn't make the final call, what does? Well, that brings us to the real decider, the ultimate arbiter when it comes to diplomatic symbols: policy. Let's just go ahead and bust a few common myths right now. First up, the idea that flying a flag automatically equals recognition. Nope. The fact is, recognition is a deliberate political decision made by a state. Myth number 2, taking down a flag erases an identity. Not a chance. An identity is way more resilient than that. And finally, the myth that the UN is the one approving or rejecting flags. In reality, the UN has its own set of rules for displaying flags, and they're totally separate from whether its member states recognize a territory or not. This quote just nails it. Flag presence reflects policy choices, not universal agreement. So when you see a flag flying at an embassy or a global summit, it doesn't mean everyone in the world agrees on its status. What it means is that the host country or the organization in charge made a specific policy choice to allow it. They write the rules for their own event. Look, if you take just one single thing away from this, let it be this simple equation. Symbols do not equal recognition.
A flag is a powerful declaration of identity, absolutely. But recognition, that's a formal legal relationship between states. Getting that distinction is everything. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If flags are just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle, what are the other pieces? What other tools, from creating their own passports to setting up trade missions, do aspiring states use to try and claim their spot on the world stage? Well, that's a story for next time.